Video is to show the use of Ancestry and the GRO Index for fleshing out families. So we'll start with family search where we don't have some information, and we'll go to Ancestry and the GRO Index to try to fill that information in. So we'll start with Thomas Hope Bentley, his wife Eleanor, and their child Clara Jane Bentley. Now it's very common to actually find a number of the children on family search, but just not together as an entire family, but actually have duplicate parents. So in order to grab the family unit, we need to find out what Eleanor's maiden name is, flesh out the family, source it, use the GRO Index to find the other children, and then put them all back together here on family search. So the first step is to create a new ancestry tree. So I start with just the 3 people that we have here information on and fill out Clara Jane Bentley. We'll look at her profile here, and just the information we grabbed off of the one source from Family Search, which was the christening record indicating about January 1872 in Wolverhampton. So we'll go with that information. So we'll jump over here to the GRO Index and enter her in. I've done this so many times, some of these names are already in the drop down. So Clara Jane, and female, and 1872. I'll go ahead and put 1 year on this. Typically I do 2. It depends on if I feel that it's a christening record or if it's a census record. Census records are less accurate. Okay, so punching that in, I get back to one from Wolstanton and Wolverhampton. I did not put the registration district in here, but we know it's Wolverhampton, so we're going to guess it's the second one here. So we're going to presume that Paulton is correct, but we'll do some more research. The 4th window I have here is just a Google Doc where I track the information I get back off of the GRO Index as I flesh out the family. So we'll come down and paste her information here. If you paste it, you'll get back exactly what you see on the screen in colors. If you paste it without formatting, you'll get the text back like this. So we'll go back over here to Ancestry. We don't have any hints yet. Ancestry seems to be quicker in returning hints. We'll click on that anyway. None came up yet, so we'll do a search. What we're looking for specifically is matching christening records, that we have one over here, and the matching birth registration record here. So we've got 3 Clara Janes from Wolverhampton here, so we'll click on those. And the father matches and the mother matches, but still not giving us that name. So we'll punch the name in here. One of the reasons I do an audit tree is it keeps it small and I don't have a lot of names dropping down in here. You end up chasing an Elizabeth in a tree with a lot of people, and there's 50 Elizabeths. And then you have to start going by date. So it's easier to keep the tree small and flesh out the family maybe 3 generations before you go back to correct family search. We'll keep coming in here and grabbing more of these that match. So this one gives us the actual parish or church that the baptism took place. Just a little bit more information. When it comes to a baptism and not the birth, I'll go ahead and include that information on there. And yet a third. I'll have to go back when they come in and see what the difference is between the film or why we have 3 of these. So you see it's 1 click less per person to do this in Ancestry than it is to do it on Family Search. That's enough christening records. So I'm going to look specifically for the registration. If I see, here's one right here. Okay, there it is. If I didn't see it here, then I would click into here and go to births and actually look specifically for that registration, which is right here, 1837 and 1915, to limit the list to that, and I would get this stuff back. So we'll go here, January. Okay, so what we see here is this is the other young lady from Wolstanton first. We go January to March. We're looking for April to June. The GRO registry will use the last month in the quarter to indicate in the quarter it was happening. So here we go. April, May to June. So this is the right one. So we'll add that. So this is what ties together the information from the GRO Index that records her last name. And I have about January. That's because I brought it in from here and just put about January. So I'll correct that to April and do close. And that reminds me that I don't have a specific birth date, but I have the district information on there. We've pulled in 3 christening records and the birth registration. We don't have any hints yet. It may take 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll go ahead and look at the father and see what we can get if there's any hints that exist for him. There do not. So let's do a search and maybe we can pull back something besides a christening record. Okay, here's an 1881 census. We see Clara Jane Bentley here at age 8. We'll click on her and see if she matches about 1873 with Thomas and Eleanor. So I'll back up and go ahead and click yes on that and to save it. So what we found here is a number of kids. So we'll grab those guys and build that out. We'll add this to Thomas. So using a census, we're going to go ahead and add some kids here. And then we'll go back to the GRO Index. So now that we've got them saved here, we'll jump back over to the GRO Index. Using the GRO Index and believing it's Paulton, then we'll go ahead and take the mother's maiden name and put that in the mother's maiden name here. And we'll take out the names here and see what we get. We'll move that to 2 years and do a search. So now we're going to find kids that match Paulton. So we have Alice Jessie and Elizabeth. So Alice Jessie matches over here. Elizabeth does not match. We're looking at 1870, actually before Clara. Okay, so we're going to grab this information and put it in order over here. So we'll put Elizabeth here first, and we'll put Alice Jessie, 74. I don't know that we're going to get kids between them, but it's sometimes good to have that spaced out. Okay, before I go any further down this line, I'm going to actually look at Elizabeth. So I'm going to put Elizabeth's name in here, and like I said, I've typed in so many names, they'll show up here. And click search, get her alone from the same place, and then click on death. And the reason I do this is because Elizabeth exists on the GRO Index as an individual as we have here, but it's not in a census. So we'll go back to the district we're from, Wolverhampton, and see if we can pull up a death for Elizabeth. Okay, we're showing 1870. So I'm going to take a wild guess that Elizabeth, and that's what I meant by if you paste in instead of paste without format, you'll end up getting that Elizabeth is a part of this family based on the location and the mother's maiden name, but she passed away when she was not even 1 year old. Okay, so we'll go back to birth. And this is the reason we use the GRO Index, because Elizabeth does not show up in a census. And I don't know that we would know that she was a part of the family, so we wouldn't actually try to go find sources for her unless we use this. So taking her name back off and putting Paulton back in here. Then we'll continue down this list. So 72, go to 75. And I'm not sure if they're still in Wolverhampton or not. So we'll take this off. Okay, Alice, Jessie, Annie, and Janet. So Janet is new, and Annie is new. So this is the 77. and Annie's 76. And we have Janet here and Annie here. So now we're looking for a Maggie. If she exists, she was in the census. We'll jump to 78. And that didn't get it. 81. Here's Maggie. Okay, and we'll keep going. See what we can pull in. 84 and 87. Okay, just by chance, none showed up in a census, but again, we found a girl who's not in a census. We'll go back to 70, so I'm going to guess they were married in 69 or 70. We'll do a search for males that match that last name. We may not find any, but this is the way you traverse through the dates, knowing the mother's maiden name without a location to find if there's someone who matches. Okay, we have Thomas Hope. Now, interestingly enough, that matches the father's name. So once again, we found a child that doesn't exist in a census. So we'll pull them in, 79. Paste in here. And keep going, 82. 85. Okay, that looks like we've gone far enough. So in this example, we've found kids that match the census, but we've also found 2 kids that are non-existent as far as we can pull back. Now, just very quickly before I go back and look for Thomas from a death, I want you to notice that we have 10 hints over here now for him, and if we clicked on Claire, we'll probably have some hints. We have 6 that showed up now. So it takes a moment, but we end up getting hints back pretty quickly. So let's go back over to GRO and punch in Thomas. And he was 79. And Kings Norton. And do a search, make sure we pull him back up, and then we'll click on death. And we don't have a death for him. Okay, that actually surprises me. So we'll have to see. Here's one. There's somebody who's 3 years old. Okay, so what we need to figure out is where were they in 81? In 81, they were in West Bromwich, based on that birth. And Maggie did show up in there, so we'll grab this and see if we can nail this down and find a death. Okay, so in 79 and in 81, we had a death of a Thomas, but here's Thomas Hope. So there's our record right there. So again, we didn't find him necessarily at Kings Norton, but we did find a death record that matched by name. I try to put the death records in here and indent so I can figure out how this is put together and people that I should have in a census and people I don't. Okay, so back over to Ancestry. Let's jump back to the father real quick since it's his family. We're going to add in the daughter and son that we did not know about. So we added Elizabeth. I used a lowercase on the first name here because I don't know for sure, but I want to be able to match it up to something. So about January 1870. And I'll go ahead and put in Wolverhampton. St. Luke matched from that perspective, but I want to be able to pull in the district information I found here over as an actual source. And then we'll add in the son. Thomas Hope, and he was from about January 1879. And Kings Norton I'm not going to click Worcestershire because it's not. It's actually in Staffordshire, but sometimes that particular district coming across doesn't always match up. Okay, so we've got the other family members we found from GRO, and we'll go back in here and see what we can find. So here's a bunch of sources that we'll hit, adding these together. But very quickly, now that we think we know who Eleanor is, we'll go ahead and put her in here, because what we're looking for from Thomas's sources are a wedding that matches Eleanor Paulton as a companion. I don't see a wedding. Here's a marriage registration. Thomas Bentley does not have Eleanor, so that's a no. I don't see one, so we'll continue with these sources. He's widowed here in 1911. And Janet matched. I'm not sure who Clara is, but before I click this, I'm going to figure it out. Cousin. Okay, so these are one of the things that we would want to add. Now in 1871. Okay, that would be before Elizabeth was born. But if we mark this as something we want to figure out how that cousin was involved in the family, we'll go back and find that later. And you notice that time we had 2 Thomas that showed up on the list because his son was named after him. Okay, here's a good one. Here's the district registration right here for Thomas Hope Bentley. So what we can do is jump over here and actually go look for his parents. 45 in Compton. I'm not sure that Compton is a registration district. So we'll punch it in. It doesn't come up. If it's a registration district, it will match. So really quickly what we're going to do is go to familysearch.org/map with 2 P's and punch in Compton and figure out where we are here. So we want Compton, or Wolverhampton's a district for the registration. So Compton must be a part of Wolverhampton. So if you didn't know where it was, but we're going to say it's in Staffordshire, then we would run down this list and look for Staffordshire and see if we could find it. Well, here's close. We'll click this in Staffordshire to show you how you would find this. So in order to find the jurisdiction, we would click on this and we'd see Wolverhampton. So if you don't know the district, but you know the town, in this case, we're looking at a small town in Staffordshire. So we looked up Compton and didn't find it directly in Staffordshire, but found something else in Staffordshire. We know that Wolverhampton is the district. So if you didn't have that information, this is the way to find it using the maps. So we'll type in Wolverhampton as the district and make sure we're doing a birth. And do a search for 45. Okay, so we have Matthews or Hope. Now I'm going to take a wild guess based on experience that this is probably the mother named after that. So we'll go down here and we'll punch in Bentley and Hope and leave his information here from the GRO Index. So the same thing that we did earlier by traversing through using the mother's maiden name and punching out the family, we could do here in order to figure out who else was in that family. But we'll do some more sources over here in Ancestry and see if we can't pull in that information there as well. So about January is when he was born. And okay, we have again matching on 1927 for the death. This is a district, so September, August, September matches, and 45. So I've gone through these pretty quickly. Typically I read them more to make sure, especially if there's conflicting ones. With the middle name that matches, you can be fairly certain that you're okay on that. Okay, here we have Sophie and Harriet is a sibling in 51, so he would be 6 years old based on this, if that's correct. So he's 6 years old. Okay, so again, we'll go ahead and go with this, not knowing if it's completely accurate, but that's why we do it in Ancestry, because we can build this out and find more sources that either match and confirm or conflict. Okay. Here he is a servant at age 16. It's in the right area. It's the right time. We don't know. So for the sake of knowing or not knowing, what we would want to do is figure out how close these towns were, since Compton and Tetterall are here. So I'll jump over to the maps again and punch that one in and see if we can get something back on that. It's in the same district, but I don't know. Litchfield. I'd have to go back and match some of these guys up to see how close it was. Maps right now is broken, that it's not actually showing me where it is in the system. Maps does also not allow me to put in two different search sources to tell me how far apart they are. So we'll go with this and try to prove this out later. Okay, one of the things you can do when you use Ancestry is there's 6 other people that have Thomas Hope Bentley in their tree. So we'll click on that into a new window and just do a comparison. I'll ignore this, of the facts. So running through here very quickly, I'm not sure how long we've been recording this, about 10 minutes maybe. We have this many sources already. So we have 12 sources. These have 13, and they have Sophia. These guys have a different mother and a different father. Okay, so the one thing, we took a guess on Hope, but this is Matthews, it's not even Ross. I don't even know how they're coming up with this. It's an entirely different wife as well. I won't take the time to prove this out, right or wrong. They have some of the kids here. Right here they have 3, 4 of the kids, 5, and yet they have other kids we don't know. But then again, they show Elizabeth here, which is someone that we found in GRO that wasn't anywhere else. So again, we're just peeking here to try and figure out. I would advise against clicking on this and comparing and moving stuff over. What we're going to do is click on this one that has 13 sources and try and figure out what we don't have. 51, 61, 71, 81, and 01, 1911. Here's their source right here, the Ancestry family tree source. That's my favorite. So what I said we shouldn't do, they did, and copied over someone's Ancestry family tree as a source, which doesn't help anyone to know if it's good or bad. So we'll go with that. One thing we do learn is they have a marriage here. And the reason I clicked on this was because when it has a source attached to it, like the baptism here, it will tell me what that source is. So if I clicked on this, then it had the actual wedding source, then I would want to go see that wedding source and perhaps move it over to mine. So here's the birth index, which we have. So hopefully we'll run into that later and I can show you that. Again, they have as many sources as we do, but they don't have Elizabeth. We're going to have to make sure we prove Elizabeth and Thomas Hope as part of that. And that's the only reason I look at other people's trees, is just to find out what sources they have that I didn't find, and so I can figure out why I didn't find it. We've gathered some sources for Thomas. Let's go ahead and click over here in Family Search. He has one source. So, and it's the one source we have regarding Clara Jane's baptism. So he's not a well-sourced individual. Okay. We think this is the last name. We've pulled that up all through GRO here to show that, but we'd like to find that wedding. So what we're going to do is do a search over here and go look for marriage information. So here's a Thomas Bentley. Hopefully we've got a Thomas Hope. So we'll go ahead and move this over and see if we can narrow this search down and get some answers. I don't see any offhand here. So we'll click Edit Search and actually say find Eleanor somewhere. And we don't have one. So in these cases, then it would be good to go use free BMD to actually find out if there's a registration for a marriage. Again, the GRO Index will do birth and death. The free BMD will actually do marriage. Some of the children. So as we've done these census, 51, 61, 71, 81, we would expect that some of these would show up on the children's pages. That's one of the advantages, again, of using this. Sometimes it'll bring those sources over if they're involved in that. So, again, Elizabeth wasn't in there, but what we'll do is we'll go find if Elizabeth has a birth and a death record that matches. So this is not our Elizabeth because we feel that Elizabeth passed away as a youth, so she wouldn't be married. All these guys are married, so that's not the right source. So we're actually looking for a birth index and a death index right there. Okay, we have an Elizabeth Bentley in 68, 70, and 70. And she was January 70, so I have an interest to find out who this other one is. So we'll go back to Elizabeth and female and back to 68 just for fun to see if we can figure out who this other one is. Okay, that's 70. I'm going to jump by 2 years. I don't know why. Oh, she died in 45, so this is someone completely different with the same name. And there's a whole bunch of them. We don't know where she was born necessarily here. We'd have to chase that down, but that's not our gal. So we'll go with these two. Birth index and death index. So we'll do yes. On the death, we'll do about July. Let's check that for sure. Yeah, July, August, September. That's correct. So that's our match on that. I forgot to move her name over. I told you I'd do that. So let's go to here to birth index. Elizabeth in January, February, March. That is correct. So here I'll take her name over. That's to indicate that we have found her. 10 other people have this in their tree, which is interesting because nobody that had Thomas's tree had it. And this is all the sources of people who had her married to someone. Okay, so that's not our gal. And we'll ignore that. Okay, Clara has 6 hints. That's who we started with. Again, remember, we started with 3 people here. Okay, we know that she came from Wolverhampton, and the only other gal that came out of here that had the same name was from a different location. So we're going to guess this is her, and that she actually got married. So this goes into the 3rd generation, down to in her children here. Whenever we have better information, this is interesting. So what we're going to want to do is figure out where he came from. And Barry may actually report to Wolverhampton. We have a town and a district level, so we'll pull it up over here. And click here and find out. Okay, so West Bromwich is the reporting district. So we're going to question where he's from. So we'll go ahead and click this and say alternative. So it'll give us both dates on it. Herald matches. But this way we'll try to figure out where he actually came from. Sometimes when they did these records, they just put the same town as they had from the spouse or the kids. So you have to be careful in the information you get from there. Okay, here's their marriage. There's Thomas Simmock that shows up in there. We'll say about April. So you'll notice I try to use the about when I'm doing a quarterly registration so that it doesn't mark it as a month or a day. Okay, in 72, death in 1912. Again, we didn't find another one from this exact location, so we'll go ahead and take a shot at that. I forgot to put about. Marriage. So Jane Bentley, George Bentley did not marry Hatfield. We're looking for a Clara Jane anyway. So we'll go ahead and open this up to see what we're missing now that we've sourced her out. So we have 9, Thomas Hope, Eleanor, Thomas, and Harold. We have all the same things they have and all the same people. We didn't miss anything from our sourcing. Okay, Alice. So spending the time just to go through and source these out, what we found so far, just in review, is we found her husband, and we found the family. And the next thing we'll do is click on as we source, because the better sources you have here, the better matches you will make if they do exist on Family Search. We'll actually see if these kids exist as an island like Clara does. So this is pointing to the fact that Alice Jesse married someone. And we'll see what's in here. So this is going to be Robert Rudge or William Ellis. So we'll go back, and these look like they're pointing to Roger Rudd, but I'd like to find the actual marriage, not just a district level, but the actual marriage. So July, August, September, so that's a complete match. Again, putting this in ties the GRO Index information of the mother's maiden name as a source to the individual. That's why I always try to make sure that I have that listed. Of course, Alice Maud Bentley is over here. So that was a mistake. We'll have to figure out who Alice Maud Bentley is. Let's jump to facts. This is one of the reasons I love Ancestry, because I can go pull this out. So looking at this, Alice Maud Bentley in July of 74, and Alice Jesse in July of 74. So let's jump on this and figure out who Maud is. So Alice Maud in 74. Okay, I'm guessing it's this one. And Hayward would be the mother in West Bromwich. So I added this in correctly. Again, great reason to use Ancestry to do this work, because I just click remove, and it removes that source. and we will move on. So you can make mistakes over here and make corrections and figure it all out before you actually put it on Family Search or help others to find the information you found. So here's the marriage we're looking for. That's the district level though. We don't see the other one quite yet, so we'll put about here. And we believe she married Rudge. This one, Alice J, matches. So I'll open this. Okay, this is district level, it looks like. So December matches with the 23rd there. I'll pop this one open just to see what I'm missing. So I don't know if she ever went by Jesse, but we'll look at this one with the most sources and see if they have. So 81 and 01, they don't have a 91. Okay, this is, oh, here's that's birth. We have that. So this is always good here. If we can find these, the 1939 actually had the actual birth day on it. Now, from a district perspective and a quarterly, July, August, September, this matches. So we'll grab that, and anytime I can find that information, then I'll put that down. Now she's a widow, so I'm going to get rid of this tree and make a note in here to later find that Alice Rudge, widow, in 1939, so that we can confirm later that her husband died before 1939. But this is where you can actually find day and the date regarding the birthdays. I don't know. She wasn't from Dudley. I don't know there's another Jesse. So again, what we can do is go over here and pull this up, because you never know what name they went by as over time. They often change names. In 74 in Dudley. I think Dudley's a reporting district, so we'll see if somebody shows up. Nope. Okay. It's worth a shot anyway. But you can see how you can keep going back and forth to this to find people or actually check sources that exist over here and see if you can actually find the individuals that are related to that. So we did Alice, we did Claire, and we did Elizabeth. So we'll close them and come back to Dad and do the next three, Annie and Janet. Thomas should be quick, and Maggie. Now we know Maggie, her information, so we'll do quick edit. Maggie was born about January 1881. Based on this entry, so we'll start with there. We have 3 hints. Okay, so it looks like she died in 1885. I need to put about here. Maybe T. And we can also check that really quickly, going back to Maggie from 1881. We'll find her again here. Okay, and it said 5 years, so I'll push this up to and that's the one that matches at 4 years old. It's a shame that they don't have the mother's maiden name on the death record. It would make things so much easier. But I wanted to pull this to put in here. Again, paste without formatting. So I guess Maggie did only show up in one of those censuses. So looking for Thomas, we're looking for the registration, so January of 79. January, March, that matches there. We'll try to find a matching christening record if he was christened before he passed away. We're going to have 2 Thomases on the list, so I'm going to look for the young one. The name matches, so we'll grab that and capitalize everything this time. And this one has, of course, we know when we talked about this, it is not Worcester, it's actually Staffordshire. So it's that one. And here's the death index that we have matched over here. July, August, September. I have 4 hints this time. That's interesting. They showed 30th of December, which might get reported, but that's a death, so that's not it. Sometimes the christening, or they're late on the record and they'll show up on here, and he didn't get married and he passed away before 1880. So none of those are his, but we will go look for a christening record just in case. So this is the dad in 1881. And I'm not sure we have 1881 down. We do, so we don't need that. So let's make sure we update his birthday here so we can get relevant information. Again, looking for a christening record and didn't find one. Okay, we'll come up and do Janet and Annie. So it looks like 54. April 77. So we have about 1878. April, May, June. So it is actually April of 77. Again, the 1939 England and Wales Registry gives us much closer on this, but I'm looking for something that ties the registration of the birth on here. So I'll go here and find it again. Remember, we click on search and then birth and see if we can get it here. And she's coming out of Kings Norton, which is, again, probably going to show on here as Kings Norton, Worcester, because they have, this was an alluded to district. It wasn't reported from there. So September by June. So this is the one here. You don't have to correct these things very often. I find very few mistakes. And we've got where she was born, but we'll go ahead and put it here in about April. So she was here in 39. That's a residence. Incapacitated. I'm looking for something that shows me her birth. I don't know if this is her. So sometimes we put it down and see if we can find more around it. Sometimes we don't. 1899 versus 1954. So we've got potential marriage and different death information. I'm going to hold off on these. I don't know, without more information around this, if all of this is her or not. So again, I don't have Manchester, 1877 for Anne. And our Annie is in 76. So just for fun, we'll plug in Anne over here. Female in 1877. And see if we can find her mother. Under Wolverhampton. Of course, we're looking at deaths. Okay, so looking at that record for October of 1877, which would be December over here, we could probably safely say that Cheadle is her mother's maiden name. So if we want to go off on a tangent, we could go figure out if she's over here or not. So what we'll do is go down to the bottom here and just enter this information in. Should we find ourselves with 15 extra minutes that we want to go see if there's a record there. Okay, so we've gone through all the kids. And what we'll do is just see if any of these kids exist and match up. So she does not. Janet does not. Thomas won't because he's not showing up on anybody's radar screen yet. Maggot is not. We've got the other three kids up here. We do know Clara does. She's who we started with. Alice Jessie does not. Clara does, and Elizabeth is not going to. Okay, so Family Search currently has an island here, and we've been able to figure out an entire family. And later we can push them over to Family Search, an update Family Search. One of the things I try to do is prepare the information before we put it over there. So we're looking at Paulton here, and because this is not used a lot, I'll try to clean this up so there's a separation between the mother's maiden name and the kids' names. So interestingly enough, there was a 20% morbidity rate of children, and here we've got 3 of these 8 that passed away early. So I try to make sure that I clarify a little bit, again, because it's not always clear what information we're leaving here. We drop the GRO Index. Okay, so we'll go up to Eleanor and open her in a new tab and go to her collaboration, add a note, and type in GRO Index and drop these names in here. I didn't like that very much, did it? This page seems to wrap differently. Again, I try to make sure that I indent the deaths so they're easier to pick out. They're related to the one above them. I guess it depends on the town's name that they're born in, how long this line's going to be. And we'll do save. And there we go. Okay. Now that we've established we have a family here, then we'll go ahead and take what we have. Again, they have one source for each of these three individuals. So we'll match this up. Oh, look, he has two. Okay. So this is one of the things we do try to solve when we do this. So this is the person we have in front of us. And this is the person that might be the same person. So before we do this and source him, we're going to go back. Sophia matches the mother we have. So let's plug in Andrew and see if we can flesh out this family as being related. So we'll go check. So one of the things we do is jump over to a new window and pick a new ID and actually type this ID in and see if we can understand what sources they have. Bring up that new ID here. There are no sources. Births and christenings, we could check the ones that existed here. .45. Andrew and Sophia. So that would match. Eleanor's wife, Eleanor Poulton, so that matches. Okay, so we're going to be wild and crazy and believe that these two are the same. So we'll go back to Thomas Hope here, and we will save him as the primary. We'll take his ID and jump back over here and find Dad and do merge by ID. And the 2nd of February for my christening matches the January date that we have for him coming in. And this will add in his parents. Okay, we'll take the surviving one and say connect, and so now we've got him connected. He still only has one source, so what we're going to do is take him and compare on family search, and this is where we're able to add in the information that we were able to source over on Ancestry. And that will change his sources from 1 to whatever we have now, 13. Okay, we have Eleanor here. His wife Eleanor here. I never brought her name down because I didn't go through her sources. So here's the Louisa Bentley we found earlier that's not a part of this. So Eleanor Poulton, we're hoping married. She matches, but the husband doesn't, so we'll ignore that. That's an interesting one, but that doesn't match. 1846. Death, birth, okay. 19 as a visitor, not a relative. 1908 and 1908. So this matches from a name perspective when you're married as far as a death of a registration. Let's check and see what we're missing, if anyone has anything different than we do. Thomas Bentley and the 5 kids. Elizabeth Allen and William Poulton. Okay, so what we can do is check her birth. And 46. I'm thinking of Wolverhampton. And we have no one. And that's where we check our spelling, Bolton, Eleanor. So we have no females who match that. Okay, when you can't find anybody, then we'll go to name differences in case spellings are different. This query takes a little bit longer, but when you have nowhere else to go, then sometimes you have to wonder if names were spelled differently. Okay, so we have one that seems to match. I don't know where Berkhamsted is from a name perspective in 46. So we'll see if it's in Staffordshire, and it's just a town that reports to something that does make sense. And Berkhamsted doesn't pull up anything, so that didn't lead us anywhere. So we're stuck on her. Her source is nailed down, but we actually do know who she is on Family Search right now as PQ1. So we'll match her with that for right now with 2 possibilities. That's our PQ1. And Elizabeth and William. That's, I believe, French for William. I don't know if that's them either. Okay, so what we'll do is pop open another Family Search by ID, and we'll look that one up. 9H31. NNF. They have one source, so we'll see what that is. Okay, so Wolverhampton does match, but it doesn't match anything that we have in GRO for 46. Okay, and that's because Eleonora is the name on this. Still nothing. Okay. So no luck on the possible duplicate, but we'll take a note. Copy the ID and paste it here. We'll go ahead and match out the one that we know, just so we have her connected, and we'll push over the information we do have from the census record she was in with her children. Make sure we push over her last name since we've discovered that. Okay, then we can push over the kids that we know. Again, based on these, Elizabeth was last. So we'll add her. And Claire is there, so we can match up with her. This is the one we don't know about. Let's go back to Thomas and refresh. And make sure our families match up. So Elizabeth, Claire, Alice, Annie, Janet, Thomas, and Maggie. And they're sourced as far as we can source them, because the sources go and we push them. So the next step would be to actually go back into these individuals and source them completely out, add their spouses if they exist. And that's the next step forward. Now, we did mention that we have in the future to check on is a cousin here to make sure that Alice, who married someone, is actually a widow in 39. We'll go back and check his information and see if we can flesh out more information to see if that actually is a duplicate.